first of all, Dr. Vitti, thank you for joining us today
Thank
here
you.
on Real School. And so we are at that point where we've just completed the school year and you've just completed your first full year as superintendent. We've received FCAT scores and EOC scores. Where do you think we are as a district?
Well, obviously my expectation for myself as a leader in the organization is that we're always performing above the state average and that we're the highest performing of the big 7 large districts in Florida. So when you look at that as the goal, I think our results were mixed. We didn't quite overcome the state average in every area, and we weren't the highest performing of the large 7 districts every subject level and grade level. But there were areas that we did well in. At the elementary level, we did well in science. Same can be said at the middle school level in science. At the elementary level, we struggled with writing and reading. Yet at the middle school level, we saw a bit of an increase in writing, in certain grade levels increased in reading. And at the high school level, we did very well in algebra, which is the end of course exam. We struggled a little bit with geometry, and although we dipped a little bit in writing, we were still above the state average in 10th grade writing. So all in all, mixed results. And I think as we go into next year, we want to see the areas that improved continuing to improve and the areas that declined increase. But our main focus going into next year is about being ready for the Common Core standards and the different way of teaching that needs to take place. But as a summary, very proud of the work that we were able to do together. When I say together, the district, the schools, and I think the general community, and embracing a new way of work. We had many, many initiatives, more initiatives than I think the district has ever seen in one year before. And I think that it generated a certain degree of energy, enthusiasm for public education. I think we did a lot of good things for kids, especially programmatically. And it's just about leveraging that as we go into the next year, not doing more, but being true to the analogy of less is more, and just honing and going deeper with all the new things that we built in the 13-14 year.
Excellent. And I know this hasn't changed, the importance of literacy, and we often hear you speaking about that. Talk to us about the new intervention program that we will be expecting to see.
Well, literacy, I think, has been Duval County Public Schools' challenge for a long time. Anytime you look at literacy rates as far as on grade level proficiency and meeting the grade level proficiency standards, we're only at about 50% district wide. And so that leads you to understand that at certain schools, a large number of kids are reading at grade level, and at other schools, low numbers of kids are reading at grade levels. And that's we have to have the community support in doing that. We can't do that alone as a school district. A lot of what happens with literacy starts at the home, with children being read to, creating a space for vocabulary acquisition and the use of vocabulary. And so as we go into next year, we have to do a better job primarily at the elementary level in catching students up that are behind. We're doing that with the expansion of our VPK program, which is our 4-year program for students to make sure that those students are ready for kindergarten, especially in our high poverty schools. But as you mentioned, we have to refine our intervention process. So next year, those students that are below grade level in kindergarten, first, second grade, and then in smaller schools where there's fewer number of students, even looking at third, fourth, and fifth graders who are below grade level, providing a full-time interventionist that will go into the classroom and work with students in small groups or pulling them out when appropriate to review the skill level deficiencies that students are showing in reading and go over the standards in more detail in smaller groups to catch students up. Because we have to recognize that we can't teach children how to read at grade level in third grade. And third grade level has always been the grade level where we've concentrated most on literacy, because that's what FCAT tests, at least the old test. But the same thing will be the case with the new assessment. Is third grade will be the first grade level that's actually tested for literacy proficiency. And we have to realize we have to teach children how to read starting in pre-K kindergarten and intervening appropriately and swiftly to make sure that they're on grade level by the time they get in third grade. And I think our new systems will allow us to do that better than we did it this year and in the past in general.
And so you just touched upon the next topic to discuss is the new assessment exam. We're shifting from the FCAT to the American Institute of Research, or AIR exam. So what are your thoughts about, going through the process of bringing something new after so many years of having the FCAT?
Well, I think this new assessment, more importantly, it's the right thing for children. And I think when you talk about what the new standards ask teachers and students to do, which is a focus on applying information, analyzing information, synthesizing information, it creates the skills that we know children need to be successful in college and the world of work in general. And I think it's also the skills that are used to create a better democracy, with creating developing students who are more civically minded. And so you can't really participate in this society as far as voting, as far as having a voice, and advocating for the things that you believe in or the things that you think are wrong if you don't have those critical thinking skills. And I think the Common Core does that. My only fear is that our students at this moment may not be ready for the new standards, and our teachers may not be ready for the new standards at scale. Again, you never want to put everyone in the same, create a one-size-fits-all type of an analysis, but there are certain teachers, certain schools, certain students that are already ready for the Common Core standards. The challenge is taking that at scale. And so although I think the standards and the assessments will move our students to where they need to go, we're going to have growing pains, and we're going to experience growing pains. States like New York and Kentucky that have implemented the standards have seen a dip as far as proficiency and grade level performance is considered. But if we accept that as ultimately being the right thing for students, then I think as a school system, as a city, we're going to be better positioned to emphasize our mission, which is in every classroom having excellence throughout our school system. And more importantly, our vision, which is inspiring and preparing students for life, the workplace, and in college. And I think those standards allow us to do that much better than the old standards and the old assessment did.
Lots of changes next school year.
Well, at least at the state level, not ones that we're implementing as a district. I think 13-14 was a year of change driven by the district. I think 14-15 is a year where we refine and tweak the things that we did, and then adjust to the changes that are coming from the state and the national level regarding standards and assessments.
Excellent. Well, we will have more with Dr. Vitti right after the break.
Imagine what all students could do at scale, regardless of obstacles, if they had a great teacher from pre-K to 12th grade. Research is clear that if you put a great teacher in front of a student just 1 year, that student is more likely to do well in school in general.
Duval County Public Schools is seeking to do just that with quality education for all, a philanthropic initiative led by the Community Foundation for Northeast Florida. QEA is investing $50 million of private funds to strengthen teaching and learning in 36 Duval schools with the greatest needs.
The Quality Education for All initiative started 10 years ago. The Community Foundation brought together a group of leaders, school leaders, community leaders, philanthropists, studied the public education system in Duval County for 18 months. Over that 18-month period, we really got grounded in the issues that the district faces. It takes a long time to understand the complexity of a public school system, and these volunteers were willing to do that.
As a businessman, I can tell you that when you see the collaboration and the leadership that's taken place in our school district, it's amazing. I'm overwhelmed by it.
I think really what's important to make any organization high performing is it starts with great leadership, and then it goes to high quality human capital to make sure that you have the very best people doing the very best work in every single job.
The 5 key investment strategies identified in the QEA fund were based on proprietary research, which supports that high-quality teachers and leaders have the greatest impact on advancing student achievement. These include performance pay incentives, a new teacher residency program, leadership development, an improved data management system, and operational support for programs and policies.
I think part of that incentive plan to move teachers, highly effective teachers, to schools where the needs are the highest is one way that the district is really showing that they're trying to align great teaching practices and great teachers with the kids that need it most.
I can still think back to my high school years and say that that one teacher in high school made a difference in my life as it related to the dedication and opened up doors that I never even knew existed as it related to learning. And I bet you that there are, every adult can list that one teacher that made a difference in his or her life.
How do we make sure that we have the human capital, the leadership, the energy in all 36 of these schools? If we do this, we are going to change education.
We can't be the city that we strive to be unless all of our children receive a high quality education. And the way to do that is to focus on human capital. And I think that the QEA initiatives do that.
So a term that we often hear you use is student-centric, and you use that, in terms of the different programs and services implemented throughout the district. So 2 middle schools we're looking at this coming school year will have some very significant changes. They're Eugene Butler and Stillwell middle schools. Tell us about those changes and why we're going in that direction.
Well, I think the conversation starts with the overall need to improve our middle schools. We know that as a district we lose a lot of students from 5th grade to 6th grade. I think overall parents are comfortable with our elementary schools and our high schools, but it's at those middle school years that we have to do things differently. And specifically at Butler and Stillwell, over the years we've seen a large number of students that, neighborhood students that are not going to those 2 schools. They're opting out. They're either going to charter schools, they're going to magnet schools. And so the data is telling us that something's wrong, especially when we look at it from a consumer point of view. If you are the consumer, meaning you're the parent, and you have options, which parents have, they're opting out. They're not choosing us as a place to do business, to use that analogy. And so if you are a business and you're losing customers, you have to do something differently. You got to rethink your product and how you market that. And I think when you look at Butler and Stillwell, we are offering a new product. And that new product at Butler is the single gender strategy, which I think provides a new, exciting product on the menu of options for parents who have historically opted out of a struggling or lower performing school. In the case of Stillwell, it's about a military magnet, which it focuses on the skills and behaviors that I think are reinforced through a military focus. Now, the intent of this school is not to develop kids for the military. Instead, it's to use the frameworks and philosophy that has gone into military type of programming and activities to build students who are better leaders, better citizens, and better students. And so both strategies are about offering parents new options. And I'm excited about that, and I think the parents that we've talked to are excited about the programming and the fact that they see the district evolving, being more innovative, listening and recognizing that there are concerns at certain schools and we have to do things differently or we're going to get the same results. So the programs will take time to develop, but I think over time there will be just as much excitement at Stillwell and Butler as there are for programs at Stanton and Paxson. It's really about creating the right program, recruiting the right leaders and teachers, which we're doing over the summer, and retaining those that are currently at the school and want to be a part of it, and then marketing it, and then letting the program speak for itself. And I think it's just a matter of time until those schools catch on, and then we'll be talking about those schools no differently than we do Darnell Cookman and a lot of our other magnet programs that have really excelled in offering parents an option outside of the traditional experience.
And so speaking of new and innovative, I understand that there are also going to be changes with the K through 6 idea, as well as VPK?
Well, the K-6 strategy, again, is linked to the middle school reform process. The K-6 strategies are pilots. So we really want to study the data next year, to see how these 6th graders do by staying in the elementary environment. The research that we did in Miami, Long Beach, California, indicates that the 6th graders that stay in the elementary setting do better than 6th graders similar as far as demographics and academic performance than those 6th graders in the same feeder patterns that go to middle schools. And I think common sense will tell you that one, it's the adult-child relationship that's strengthened because of another year of being in the same building. I think that it leads the 6th grade experience to emphasize the whole child. Again, the relationship piece. I'll call it coddling, but it's really more about caring for the child and recognizing that in child development, you can't just release them and say, now you're an adult. And transitions are difficult for children. 5th to 6th and 8th and 9th, we see data decline mainly because it's a new environment. And a lot of our middle schools have struggled because we think that children are instantly adults just because they leave elementary to go to middle school. And so this is a way to think differently about the 6th grade experience, and that could lead to us to consider additional K-6s, possibly K-8s, or trying to replicate what's happening with those 6th graders in a middle school environment, but as 6th graders. All things that we can learn from this upcoming year. As far as VPK, last year we nearly doubled the number of schools with 4-year-old programs and doubled the number of classes with 4-year-old children. And what we saw was exciting as far as the data. By far, on average, 95% of the students that participated in the program are demonstrating kindergarten-ready skills, skills linked to knowing their numbers, knowing their letters, knowing the sounds of those letters. And that's exciting when you look at things like literacy and the achievement gap. It also tells us what programming does for children. No matter who the child is, and no matter of their socioeconomic background, their race, ethnicity, language, if they're in a program that's led by a high-level teacher, and in this case also a high-level para, with active district support, which we provided, and additional technology, which we provided as well, our kids will respond. And I think this data is indicative of that. And now it's just trying to expand it at the 4-year-old level, but more importantly, expand the same type of strategies district-wide as we try to move more and more of our students in preparation for the new standards.
Excellent. And so we will have more with Dr. Vitti right after this break.
The greatest benefit is that the children walk into kindergarten ready. Children leave pre-kindergarten with strong literacy skills. They are able to, in many cases, read. And if they aren't reading, they have all of the tools of early reading success mastered before kindergarten. We pretty much are saturated in every part of town. We're as far as Baldwin area for Mamie Agnes Jones. We're expanding north, have tons of schools on the south side and the beaches. Parents have tons of options in all areas of town, which is exciting. I think the work of the specialists and the teachers this year did a lot to bolster parent support. I think that provides a strong comfort level for parents, and parents are really in support of being an active participant. And pretty much in every school, teachers were above that 90% target of having more than 90% of their children either meeting or exceeding expectations, and you can't beat that. So it's really empowering to hear that teachers are excited about getting the children that we've worked with, because they know that they're getting students who are ready to learn.
Each year I love to make a challenge to my students. I propose to them, well, what about a haircut? And when I made that proposal, I told them the last 2 months of school, I just continue to grow my hair, and then we'll have a day of haircut. Several of my teachers volunteered to have a haircut on the same day. This is truly about academics and encouraging kids to do well in school.
Technology is huge these days, and I know you've expressed many times the desire to improve technology and the infrastructure in our schools, but obviously that isn't free. So what steps are you following, and what routes are you going to try to expand technology in our schools?
Well, that process has started really in the last year's budget, in the 13-14 budget, in trying to be more strategic, more efficient with our use of funding to reinvest in technology and build the right infrastructure. We've done that by creating a single sign-on process throughout our district. We've upgraded our website. We have used a SharePoint distribution system that allows us to share information more fluidly through email. We're starting to invest in portal systems at the minimal level before we ramp up with a possible QZAP 2. We were successful in obtaining the QZAP $1 that provided wireless access to about 40 of our high poverty schools and one-to-one devices in those same schools over the next 2 years. So I do believe that we've done a lot, but moving forward there's still a lot more to do. Today, not only from the assessment point of view will more assessments be online, but we know that children learn through technology today. Is that historically we know that information was obtained and understood through books. Today, students, this young generation, every one of my children who are all under the age of 12, really access technology more for information than a book. We still create space and time to use books, but they feel more comfortable using technology. Well, if that's the case, then we have to provide children in general, especially our younger children, with technology, because that's how they think of accessing tools to obtain information. And so we're behind in some ways in Duval regarding infrastructure development. We're catching up, but we're still behind. So we've utilized our current dollars. We've also used that QZAP 1, which is QZAP stands for Qualified Zone Academic Bond, and we're pursuing possibly a second one, and that will allow us to have wireless access throughout our entire district in all schools. It would also provide all of the QEA schools, so the Ribault, Rains, Jackson feeder pattern, with one-to-one devices or two-to-one devices, and teacher interactive bundles, so that all teachers have AV carts in those schools. They'll have a projector, and they'll have an interactive whiteboard along with clickers for students, response clickers. And then in addition to that, in QZAP 2, developing a state-of-the-art portal system so that parents, teachers, administrators, students, if I didn't say them, and just partners can access data right away, so they're not waiting for the district to provide them data. They can just sign on and instantly go to student level data as long as FERPA is cleared. And then lastly, creating an environment in our middle schools where middle school students will have one-to-one to two-to-one devices, and teachers in middle schools will have interactive bundles, as I explained for the QEA schools. So that's the big thinking moving forward, and then ultimately possibly pursuing a bond. And the bond would be needed to go one-to-one to two-to-one devices across the district. We've done our part at that point. We would have by creating the wireless infrastructure. But that's something we're exploring in 14-15 with the board. What would that look like? What schools would get what? How do we connect it to capital? Because there's a lot of capital projects that need to be done with science labs and auditoriums. So all these things we're looking at throughout the 14-15 year, and then looking at if the bond is the right strategy moving forward for next year. But as the state's funding is either stagnant or declining, and there's less and less dollars specifically earmarked for technology, we do have to look at alternative sources of revenue. And again, one being the bond that we're reaching out to the state level, and then possibly a referendum to put some kind of bond-related or funding stream creation here at the district level.
All right, so final question. School has been out for about a month now, and I can speak from experience. It's easy just to go home and not want to think about anything school related as a student. And so why would you want to convince people otherwise? It is important to remain engaged during these couple months of summer.
Well, we know that our students lose a lot of the information that they gain throughout the school year over the summer. And why do they lose that? Because they're not, just like anything, think of a muscle that isn't being used. If a muscle isn't used, it starts to deteriorate or it weakens. So if you really work out hard and you exercise, you can build that particular muscle or muscles in general. Well, in many ways, the brain functions like a muscle. It needs to be exercised. It needs to be challenged. And over the summer, a lot of our students are not using their brains in an academic way. So that's why reading individually or independently is important, being read to, being exposed to documentaries to build background knowledge, going to as many cultural events as students can, museum, one in particular, or science museums in general. But it's important that students continue to read, think, and apply the academic knowledge that they use. Even doing simple workbooks and worksheets over the summer allows you to continue to use that muscle so that it strengthens, or at least it maintains where it was, so that students aren't starting all over in the fall. And this is especially important as we move into the new standards. The more that we can have students not only read, but read more novels, read the newspaper, read magazines, primary sources, and then have them write about it. So we need students to read with our literacy focus, but we also need students to write, because writing is inherently linked to reading. But the more we have students doing that, they'll develop voice, they'll develop critical thinking skills, and all that is aligned to the Common Core. So the bottom line is we have to create the environment. We have to push our children, whether we're the mother, the father, grandmother, grandfather, we have to push our students to applying what they're learning more, and continue to learn over the summer. There's always the space to watch that movie, watch cartoons, sleep in a little bit. I think that's all natural part of growing up, but we can't forget that we shouldn't stop learning over the summer, because all the things that we learned and the skills we developed the year before, we're starting all over as if we didn't learn all those things as we go into the fall.
It's good advice. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. And that's it for this season of Real School, and we'll see you at the beginning of the next school year.